So this video is going to focus in on probably the most accessible way, the easiest way to do an ultrasound guided vascular access simulator, basically with just household stuff. You don't need ballistic gel, you don't need any kind of crazy toaster ovens or crock pots. You can just do it with what you have in your house.
So this one really hinges on the gelatin. You want to get some sugar-free gelatin. This happens to be Knox. It's what I find in most grocery stores, but there's no particular brand. You just want to get the sugar-free. If you get the other sugar stuff, the stuff with the sugar in it, you'll get ants, and you don't want ants.
That's how you get ants.
So that's how you get ants. So we use the sugar-free. Okay. You'll want 8 packets. See, it says right here 4 envelopes in each one. You'll want 8 total, so 2 of these little things will work. I don't exactly know how much that is, but I just use the packets. It works just fine. So we'll use these. This is the key ingredient. The second most important ingredient is some sort of fiber simulator, like a Metamucil type thing. This is an off-brand sugar-free fiber simulator. I really prefer the ones with the orange flavor because I like the smell of oranges. So there you go. This is so that it will scatter the ultrasound waves and make it look like tissue. Otherwise, if you don't use this, it'll just all look like water. So we use this for the scattering agent. A little bit of food coloring so you can make it a nice little color. You don't want it to be transparent. Some nonstick spray for your pans. You'll need, what we're using here is a piece of a Penrose drain. So it's a little bit of a very thin latex tubing. You don't want to get stuff that's too thick or it'll be real hard to stick. But something like this works fantastic. And 675 mLs of water. So what you'll want to do to begin with this, just because it takes the longest for it to boil, is take some of your water. Doesn't really matter how much. I do like most of the water. Put it in the pan, and you'll save a little bit, and you'll put it in your mixing cup.
So I'm going to go ahead and put this to boil.
Okay.
To be efficient.
There we go. All right, done with the water. So we get that starting to boil. We'll spray our pan with the nonstick spray. Okay. We'll take our tubing, our little Penrose drain tubing, and we'll tie some knots on the end of it. The years of Boy Scouts finally paid off. There you go. We'll take the ends, trim out the ends, just make this a little bit neat and tidy. Okay. And you notice it should be pretty collapsed. That's totally normal. We'll fill it with water later. Okay. And you'll just go on ahead and rest it in our mold. Now we have to wait for the water to boil. The funnest part of all.
Mm-hmm. Sweet.
All right.
All right. I hear something. I hear some boiling.
Yep.
Boiling.
We're boiling. We're boiling.
It's
boiling. All right. So while that's coming back over here, start opening up these packets of gelatin.
Okay, I'm going to be your whisker.
Okay. Ready for the whisk?
One thing to note is that this stuff does not smell good. It's made out of like horse's hooves or something like that. Like it just smells awful.
It's bad. Hence the importance of getting orange flavored fiber.
Definitely helps.
Because it somewhat reduces the stench of this stuff. Get this stuff. We want to pour it into that small amount of water that we reserved earlier. So if you put it in the boiling water, it works kind of like making a dumpling. It doesn't work out that well.
Right, because you get like basically pockets
just big
of stuff.
chunks of stuff. Okay, so we'll use 2.5 scoops of the fiber supplement.
1.
Nothing crazy.
2.
Super scientific
half.
here. Okay.
Now what? Can I get whisk now?
Okay, go stir this up just a little bit.
Oh, I thought it was whisk.
You're so close. We're almost there.
I know how to do.
Okay. All right, this is
So
all
what consistency is this? Yes, it's recorded here.
Okay, it looks vaguely like applesauce.
Okay.
Real thick applesauce. Okay. And then very quickly we'll put it in here. All right, you ready for the whisk?
Ooh, I'm ready.
It's your job. It's your job.
I'm coming in.
Okay, can we get it all out? Oh man.
Get it in there. I'm gonna start whisking.
Okay, go for it. Get that whisk action. Oh yeah, that's some 5-star whisk action going on right there.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Oh shit! Not a good whisker.
So this is the point where you get to show your artistic talent here and decide what colors you want. So what colors are you feeling, Jacob?
I'm feeling that one right there.
So, see that little chunk there? That had one little chunk that didn't get that much water in it, and it immediately made like a thing.
Yeah.
There wasn't all that much water on it. So you see, this is why you have to mix it with the water first.
So you just take it out.
So you just take it out. Honestly, it doesn't matter. I mean, you do ultrasound on the arm. There's chunks of things. There's stuff. Right, so you know.
All right, I feel like I'm mostly there.
Okay.
If I stop like spilling it here.
Okay. So we'll set this over here so I don't melt my counter. And then we just pour some of this in. Okay. What you'll want to do is pour about half of it in now. And we'll take the rest of it. We got our burner off. And we just set it on the burner. The thing is, you definitely don't want to leave the burner on, because with this fiber stuff, there's a little bit of most of these fibers are like some sort of a sugar that just we can't absorb, and so it will burn and stink and be really bad. We don't want that. We don't want that. So now that we have this ready, we'll do this, and we'll take it and stick it in the freezer for about half an hour or so.
I got you.
And after about that half an hour, you get your second batch and just pour it right over that first batch that you already put in there with the tubing sitting right on top of it. Try to create a uniform layer. Don't make a big mess. And you want to layer it about as thickly as you did the layer before, so that you have the rubber tubing just right in the middle.
Now, after you pour the second layer in, go ahead and put it in the fridge until it is nice and solidified. You want to make sure that you take it out before it gets frozen, though, because that's going to kind of mess you up. You want it to have the consistency of like really hard Jell-O.
This is what you have after pouring on the second layer, and we'll just pull this out of the mold now.
So it's just like real gentle kind of just pressure. You get all the edges out first just to like loosen it off.
I think that's one of the biggest differences between this and, say, like the ballistics gel and some of the other stuff, is it's just real fragile.
So it'd be a little more gentle.
Yeah, you just got to be real gentle with it. Okay. And then there it comes out. We left it in the freezer for maybe a few minutes too long, so it's got a little bit of frost on it, but that's not a big deal.
So we haven't filled the little rubber tubing in there, the latex tubing. We haven't filled it with anything.
Yeah, that's right. We haven't yet. So what we'll do, just take a little needle here and go in, and you can see it kind of sort of on here. There we go. There's a little pop. I sprayed out some air. Start injecting it.
Awesome. That's going right into that latex tubing that you had there.
Yep.
Awesome. And that probably eliminates any kind of air, like any kind of differences or whatever that you might have between the gel and the tubing. It'll help it kind of like expand and probably make it look a lot more like a real vein, right?
Absolutely. That's the whole point here, is so we can have ourselves a real vein. Okay.
Nice.
And then what you can even do, one of the things I like to do, you just throw it back in here. And now you've got a great, safe way to transport it. And if you get a container with a lid on it, you're even set.
Gotcha. Can you fill it up with the fluid before instead of doing it afterwards?
Yeah, you absolutely could. If that's the steps that you want to take, there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't recommend filling it up before you tie the knots. That's super difficult to do. I've tried that.
Okay.
So here's what it looks like in real life. You can see that looks pretty similar to what you think you'd see in a patient. Here we turn to long axis, and you can see that needle going right into that simulated vein. Now, this is a very easy and fairly cheap way of making a vascular access simulator. The disadvantage to this is that once you have used it, you can't like remelt the Knox gel. You have to kind of throw it away and start over, and it doesn't store super well. So some disadvantages, but some really good advantages. For instance, really accessible and really cheap.